Good evening. For those not familiar with Butler's campus and Hinkle Fieldhouse, welcome. I see a number of folks that have traveled to be here from other institutions. We're really pleased that you're here. My name's Ralph Reef, and I'm a Senior Associate Athletic Director, and I want to get right into this evening. Before I introduce one of our vice presidents, I want to talk about something really important for our Butler students. Those of you who are here tonight receive BCR credit, right? Yes, you can cheer for that, right? So for that BCR credit, towards the end of the evening, Dr. Ann Wilson will be helping you get your QR code so that you get your credit. So don't leave without it, okay? All right, tonight, I'm going to begin by introducing Dr. Frank Ross. He's Vice President for Student Affairs for the university and currently in his 8th year with Butler University. He's a champion for students and a strong advocate for the support of their mental health, which has been evidenced on this campus by his support in helping get this program to where it is tonight. Under his leadership here at Butler, he began the Be Well program and many other resources and services to support the well-being of our students. So please welcome Dr. Frank Ross.
Good evening. Okay, we're in Hinkle Fieldhouse, and I know y'all can be louder than that, so let's try it again. Good evening. Thank you, much better. Thank you. Well, it's an honor and truly a privilege to welcome you all to Butler tonight for our inaugural Student Athlete Mental Wellness Summit. This summit is very important to the university in a very timely conversation as we focus on the support and mental health of our student athletes to ensure that they can become the best version of themselves, both on and off the court. At Butler University, our students truly do influence everything that we do and they're the center of our work. So it should be no surprise to anyone that our students not only were the inspiration for tonight's program, but also the driving force behind the planning and execution of this event. So I would like to first acknowledge our students in the Student Athlete Advisory Committee who all work tirelessly to enhance the Butler student-athlete experience. Their commitment to Butler and to their sport, and most importantly, to the well-being of their fellow student-athletes is remarkable. The student leaders in SAC have worked extra hard to make tonight's program happen. And I know that this program will leave a lasting legacy not only on Butler, but also our athletics program. So please join me in thanking the leadership of our Student Athlete Advisory Committee, Allie Leonard, Ben Miner, and Jeremiah Jackson. Are you all here? Stand up if you can. They truly exemplify what it means for the Butler way. In just a few minutes, we're going to be hearing from our incredible panel of speakers, made possible by our friends at Preventia. Butler has been working hand in hand for the past 2 years with Preventia as a partner in supporting and supplementing mental health support for our students and wellness for all of our students. And I am so grateful for their dedication and sponsorship of tonight's program. In particular, I would like to thank Preventia's founder and CEO, Brian Schroeder, for his visionary leadership and commitment to our students' wellness. Brian, are you here? Thank you, Brian. And finally, I am so proud of the strong partnership between Student Affairs and our friends and colleagues in Butler Athletics. Together, we are committed to Be Well and the holistic well-being of our Butler students. I am so happy that we have Ralph Reef on the team. And I appreciate his partnership, his commitment to our student athletes, and all the work that he does and put into to make this event happen tonight. Please join me in thanking Ralph for all of his hard work. Thank you all for being here tonight, and please enjoy the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. On this panel tonight, I'm going to start down at the far end with Dr. Mark Campbell. You've read a little bit about him up here. Dr. Mark Campbell got his PhD in health promotion and wellness and has been part of the National Wellness Institute as a board member. And for those of you here, I think one of the things that we most resonate and connect with is that he was part of the organization that won the World Series in 2019 with the Washington Nationals Baseball Club, and did his sports psychology work for that organization for a number of years. He's also with the Department of Defense for the United States and managed their military adaptive sports program. And he's a master trainer for Army performance psychology and resilience programming, serving all wounded, ill, and injured and their families within the military. And he's the host of Nature of Wellness podcast. Dr. Mark Campbell. So sitting to my right is Robert Wickens. And Robert, shortly after a violent accident in 2018 that resulted in serious injuries to most of his body, including spinal cord injury, left him paralyzed. But Robert vowed that he would return. And 3.5 years later, he got back in a car and drove, and has been an inspiration to everybody. Started his career as all drivers do, karts and all those things all the way up, but was a Formula One test driver, and then took the United States IndyCar series by storm as a rookie in 2018, and was, among other things, the Indianapolis 500 Rookie of the Year. So I want to just say a few more things about Robert, is the fact that I want to go back to the fact that he vowed publicly that I will drive again. And the number of injuries, the amount of injuries that he sustained was enormous. But 1 month after his accident, he publicly vowed to race, and 1,258 days later, he took the green flag for the first time and finished on the podium in that race. It's one of the top 3 positions that don't know what the podium is. We'll get back to Robert here in a little bit, but I want to introduce the gentleman in the middle, Dr. Mark Pettis. Mark is a triple board certified internist, nephrologist, kidneys, and integrative medicine physician practicing for over 35 years. He's primarily in the Boston area, played baseball at Boston University, and then got his MD from the University of Massachusetts and his postdoctoral training at Harvard Medical School. He completed his fellowships at Mass General Hospital in Boston, and he's an alumnus of the Advanced Program for Conflict Resolution, Negotiation, and Mediation at the Harvard School of Public Health. This is our panel for this evening, and I want to jump right in with some questions. And we'll start with Robert. So update us for your most recent status in motorsports.
Yeah, first off, hi everybody. That was quite the introduction. I appreciate that. Yeah, I actually just got back from Daytona Beach, Florida, where I had my first race of the 2024 season. Can proudly say that in 2024 I'm defending a championship, because we actually won the championship last year in 2023, and I became the first disabled driver to ever win a professional championship against able-bodied people. So that was fun. And so it's unique because my whole career I've never had an opportunity to defend a championship. It's always been in junior categories you would win and then move up to the next ranks, and you'd win and you move up to the next ranks. So now at the professional level, we won in 2023, and then there's nowhere else to go, so you have to defend that. So it's a new opportunity, and it's exciting. And unfortunately, Daytona didn't go according to plan. We had an engine issue, which we had to retire the car. So we didn't finish the race. So not the start of the season you want as the defending champion, but you can't win them all.
Yeah, well, it's fantastic to be able to watch Robert in the series. So let's get into your journey, and just if you would just talk a little bit about your mindset in 2018. The accident occurs, you go through an enormous amount of medical care, and within that month later, you make the proclamation that you're going to drive again. Just talk to us about your mindset at that point in time and as it moves into those 3.5 years of the journey.
Absolutely. I mean, I think first and foremost, so we talk about a month into my recovery, I vowed that I would drive again, but I was in a coma for the first 2 weeks of that time. So it wasn't a whole lot of thinking. But for me, as soon as I frankly knew I was alive, it was never a question that I wanted to race again. And I'm sure most of you guys here now, the sports that you're pursuing, you started at such a young age, it's all you really know. It's your passion, it's your love, it's what you want to wake up in the morning and pursue and get better at. So for me, I only saw it as a setback, not particularly a career-ending situation, and just kind of tried to switch focus on what it looks like. How do I get back? What does the recovery look like? In my case, I was in the ICU for the first 4 months of my recovery, then finally progressed out of there into like an acute rehab facility. I was on a waiting list to get to a spinal cord rehab facility to try see if I could walk again or see what muscles I could get fired back. And it was really 6 months into my recovery when I got transferred to Denver, Colorado at a facility called Craig Hospital. It's world-renowned for their spinal cord and brain trauma care, and that was really kind of what really took off my rehab. And from there, it was, I felt like I was just in the best place on earth, and it kind of, I never had the luxuries of going to college, but I felt like I was in college. I always called it my spinal cord college, because you had to learn your whole body, you had to learn your new life and what that looked like, and they did such a good job educating you. I had wheelchair classes every day to make sure that I wouldn't fall off that ledge and hurt myself. It was, they trained you for everything, and it was just such a positive atmosphere in that facility. And for me, being an IndyCar driver that was injured, when I arrived at Craig Hospital, I was just one of hundreds of people that were trying to achieve the same goal, which is to better their life. And some people, you would see the person to the right of me working hard at his age, you see the person to the left of me working hard at his age, and then everything in between, and everyone just did their part. And it was really an amazing community, and it really motivated me when I saw other people working hard. And it was a real pleasure to be there. But what really drove me was, frankly, just not giving up. I think there's no prognosis with spinal cord injury. All you can do is just try your best, and maybe my best doesn't really matter, because with the human body and everything, Ralph could have eaten cheeseburgers with the same injury and had a better recovery than me, even though I was working out 6 hours a day, 6 days a week for 10 consecutive months. And just you got to listen to your body. I think we've talked to this many times, but I don't think I took rest for granted. I was just working my butt off every hour I was awake, and I was getting results. So I kind of set my tempo so high, and it was working, that I didn't want to stop what I was doing. And it wasn't until the pandemic, actually, when I was forced to stop when I couldn't keep going to the gym. And my body actually got significantly stronger, and I felt amazing. And I had a lot of chronic pain that I was able to come off of. So it was a big wake-up call there.
Yeah. Well, Robert, I recall when I first met Robert, they moved back to Indianapolis from I've seen in athletes before, and I see it in the training room, and I really admire it when an injured athlete will question the process. Are we doing everything we can? Or, hey, I did this before and it worked. And so Robert came to, I was at St. Vincent Sports Performance at the time here in Indianapolis, and Robert moved back to Indianapolis, and he took his health care into his own hands, and he sought out where he could get the kind of care and activity that he had had in Denver, and he knew he needed to progress through. So he put together this puzzle of places that he received different kinds of care. And I remember when we first got Robert in a conversation, he was very direct, very focused, knew what he wanted to accomplish, and told us, not in a kind of way of bullying or anything like that, but like it was so believable that he drew people into him to help him. But one of the things I'll never forget my whole life is when we got you into the Alter G. And so here was somebody who was in a wheelchair who needed, how many in the audience have been in an anti-gravity device, the anti-gravity treadmill and so forth, right? It's not easy to get into. First of all, it's hard. You got to put on those funny pants and zip into it and that whole thing. And he did it. And I've got the video of him walking and just putting one foot in front of the other. That was our first connection. And so as a healthcare provider, it doesn't take much to, when you see somebody do that, to draw you in. And so we as athletic trainers and physicians, when we see what you do, it draws us to you. So pretty amazing stuff. So talk to us, and then we'll get to Mark and Mark here, but this transition from being able-bodied, rookie of the year, ascending in the sport, and now you're managing a new life. Talk about that transition a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, one thing we forgot to touch on, so also during my rehab, I promised my fiance and now wife that I would give her a first dance at our wedding that was happening in 2019. So I was rehabbing in Denver right up until early August. And finally my wife, Carly, said, I need you home because we're getting married in a month. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm trying to get stronger for you. Like, don't you understand? But it's like, no, we have to pick flowers. We have to pick the forks, knives, food, all that stuff. So we came back home, and I think that was one thing that was driving me is she was such a great supportive system for me through the whole injury, through the recovery and everything like that, that I knew, hey, I wasn't much of a dancer before I was paralyzed, so the bar was pretty low for what I had to achieve. So we, I was working so hard on lower body strength and just core strength and stability, and that's why the Alter G was so great, was I was constantly trying to just get reps in on my legs so I could make it 3 minutes and 29 seconds for however long our song was. So it, but just what you were saying, I think you can't prepare for what a life-changing event like that will do. And for me, being stubborn was probably my saving grace. The fact that I refused to let this stop me. One, I never really listened to the doctors when they told me I wouldn't walk again. Because I saw evidence of other people doing it. I'm like, well, hey, that guy's doing it, so why can't I do it? And it was basically just doing what I can, listening to my body. I focused so much on nutrition at the beginning of my recovery. Again, it's like there's no curriculum on how to recover from a spinal cord injury, really. I mean, so you just kind of try to stack the deck in your favor and see how you come out at the end. And, we didn't really know. And in the meantime, my wife was back home with contractors making our house accessible because it wasn't accessible, and it was this whole life-changing event. But I think the moral of the story is you can't really prepare. You just kind of almost have to roll with the punches and just try to really just adapt, and from there, I'm still every day I'm learning something new about this injury. It's not like I have this thing mastered, although I got my career back and I'm married and I have a young son now and my life's amazing. But every day there's always something that I wasn't prepared for, or wasn't anticipating, and it's tough. And I struggle every day with certain issues, whether if it's I'm trying to get groceries and someone parks illegally in the disabled spot and I can't physically get back into my car after I've gone grocery shopping. So I have to wait for them to arrive so I can get into my car to leave. And it's little things like that. Or, you know, if you bump into a wall in your house and you leave a tire mark on the wall, it just immediately kind of ticks you to the, and I try just to meditate and come back down, because you can get very irritated very quickly. And the way I explain it is, for me, like I picture my life as like a glass of water. Right? And some days the water's half empty and you have more tolerance to, you know, take things on the chin, and then eventually that glass is going to overflow, and how do you deal with that? And for me, what I've always found works well is just kind of meditating, and I do that by just counting my breath until I can just kind of feel a little more at ease. And I don't know if that works for anyone else or if it's recommended by the genius doctors beside me, but it's like, because that's how I calm down before a start of a race or any competition. A lot of drivers and competitors listen to music and they get all hyped up, and then I'm with my helmet on meditating, you know. And for me, it works. And I guess it's not the same as everyone else.
Yeah, well, thank you, Robert. Dr. Pettis, talk to us about the science of mental wellness. You know, that you've spent your life on that, and so speak to us from that science component.
Yeah, and of course I have to start by saying how great of an honor it is to be here at the Hinkle Fieldhouse. Butler Nation, thank you for the invitation, and it's great to be with Bob and with my friend and colleague Mark Campbell. So there is a mountain of science that is pointing to many actionable opportunities to promote one's mental health and general health. I define general health wellness and mental health wellness as the capacity to thrive optimally in one's environment. Our environments are always changing. Many of you have transitioned to college and university life recently. Many of you are going to be transitioning out of Butler as you enter the next chapter of your lives. And so the ability to function optimally, to thrive, to have a reason, a purpose, to get up in the morning, to get through the day, is really what general and mental health wellness is all about. Now, I link the two because the science would suggest that most of what drives how we feel and our capacity to thrive is in fact related to lifestyle. It very much relates to the choices that we make, how we eat, how we move, how we interpret and respond to stressful events in our lives, and we all know stress will happen, how we sleep, how socially connected we are, particularly if we're connected to others who love and support us, how much meaning and purpose we cultivate in our work, love, and play. All of these, what I would consider to be environmental inputs, are what drive human biology, and your biology becomes your biography. So the jury pretty much has come back to suggest that your genetics, what you inherited from your mother and your father, plays a very small percentage in how long you live, how well you live, what your risk of disease might be over your lifetime. Most of it hinges on lifestyle. So, Robert alluded to the importance of nutrition, of mindfulness. The science there is quite robust in all that it would suggest we are capable of. And, as the great rock and roller John Mayer, once said, you are bigger than your body gives you credit for. And I think what we're all doing is an attempt to help others appreciate what is possible in their lives, and that's a story of hope.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And so, Dr. Campbell, talk to us a little bit about, there's this central topic that we've gotten from our students and feedback that we hear in the training room or on the bus as we're traveling with teams or that we just know occurs is anxiety. And so can you briefly touch on that topic of anxiety and maybe some pearls of maybe things? I've heard you talk about self-talk. Sure. and so forth. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to echo what Mark said, thank you guys for being here. It's great to be here. I wore my tweed in honor of Gene Hackman tonight from Hoosiers. So just really excited to be here. The exciting part about this, Ralph, for me, and I just want to start off by saying this, is that this was built by the students, for the students, identifying topics. Butler has supported every step of the way. I do this a lot. I go to a lot of campuses. I do a lot of talks at universities. I haven't seen this before, not the way this has been done. And I just want to say that to the student body. They're listening, okay? To the administration, professors, everybody else, they're asking. And once you marry those two, that's when special things happen. So, back to anxiety, and it was phrased by the student athletes as performance anxiety. And this is a very common thing. Every performer has anxiety. A lot of it, as you mentioned, comes down to self-talk. We talked to the SAC group last night, and I love to talk about a concept I call don't. How we prepare ourselves with our self-talk going into a performance makes all the difference. If you look at it as dominoes, it all begins with a thought. So our thoughts release chemicals in our brain, which we interpret as emotions. It floods our body. We have physiological reactions to that, and then that impacts our performance. Whatever happens at the end of that performance filters back into our thinking for next time. So if you look at the top and bottom of that coin, if I go in saying, I'm not enough, this is terrible, this is going to be bad, then you're going to release those chemicals from your brain. How does your body react to that? You get tight, you breathe differently, right? You maybe hold your breath. You have all of these negative physiological responses, and then what kind of performance are you going to have, right? And then the thinking that filters out of that to the next time is, I don't want to do that again. So you immediately start creating this preconceived anxiety about a future event that hasn't even happened. So I do want to ask the crowd real quick, how many of you worry about things and get anxious about things and have physical responses to things in your life daily that never even happen? We're the only species that can do that. That's amazing. Congratulations, right? But we worry so much about the past, about the future, things that are no longer there, they don't exist, haven't been written yet, and we can make ourselves physically ill. We predetermine our performance, right? We talk about self-fulfilling prophecies, things like that, and we don't give ourselves any chance to be successful. Don't is just, we don't process those negative qualifiers, Ralph. When we were forming as a species, we were very direct. We would say, me hungry, me eat. Me tired, me sleep. Problem, action. Somewhere along the way, and I'm pretty sure it was a mom, said, don't forget your jacket. Don't skip lunch, because they care, right? But our brains can't process those negatives, so we only hear the central message, which is forget your jacket, skip lunch, lose your keys, whatever it is. Don't trip walking across the stage. Don't trip, don't trip, don't trip. And you trip and you can't figure out why. Your body doesn't understand that negative. That creates pressure going into it. You're worrying about something that hasn't even happened yet. So to be able to do things like mindfulness, to be able to do things like train your nervous system, to give yourself that best chance at being successful, talking to yourself in a way that asks for what you want, not for what you don't want. That's the key going forward. And that translates well beyond sport. Every time you go into a class to take a test and you psych yourself out, right? You create that anxiety. You start worrying about it days before, weeks before, and you're giving yourself a lower chance of being successful. That's in every aspect of your life. Okay, so it all begins with how you think about it, how you talk to yourself. Your body is going to listen every time, and you're going to get what you ask for, whether you want it really or not.
Yeah, I see it manifest itself in some of our teams getting prepped for conditioning sessions. And all of a sudden there's this heightened anxiety of fear of what the conditioning program is going to be. I did back in the 70s. Talk about rumination. And we ruminate about things and it just festers. And you mentioned to all of us in our small group, you talked about a book that I love the title too. So
Dr. Robert Zabulski years ago had a book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And he talked about ulcers on the savannah. They're standing in the sun. It's a beautiful day. They're chomping at the grass, living their best life. Suddenly that lion bursts out of the bushes. They go nuts. Everything freaks out. Heart rate goes up. All the things I told you about just a minute ago that happen within us. But then 5 minutes later, that zebra is standing there in the sun, swishing its tail, chomping at the grass. They've let it go. They've gone back to living life. We're the only species that ruminates over something the way we do. And ruminate means just continue to think about it and worry about it, right? So we mentioned mindfulness a few times. John Kabat-Zinn, who's one of the godfathers of mindfulness in America, I was talking to John one time and he said, you know what, if you miss your flight because the gate closes when you get there, it's okay to be upset. It's okay to feel what you need to feel. But the 74th time you think about it that day is probably not helping anybody, right? And that's how we've been trained and socialized to live our lives right now. It's not doing us any favors. So instead of ruminating, take the lesson from that, become a better version of yourself in this moment, because that's over, so that you can give yourself the best chance moving forward at creating the future you want.
Yeah, so if we were to package a list and give to our students a mental toolkit, what would we start from your experiences? What would we start packing into that toolkit for them? Dr. Pettis?
Yeah, so one of the hottest tools right now, I think, on the planet that relates to general health and mental health is this concept of blue light toxicity. So consider the fact that for hundreds of thousands of years, every human being that existed before you was living off of sunlight. Sun rising and sun setting were the most powerful environmental cues that would allow your biology to synchronize. Your biology is on a clock, and we talk about circadian rhythms, the extent to which your biology is in sync with nature's sun rising and sun setting. Today, in modern life, we spend about 90% of our time indoors. Very little time outdoors in nature. The quality of light in indoor environments tends to be predominantly blue light. It looks white, but if you were to, hold a prism up, you would see predominantly blue light. Our bodies are designed to turn their clocks on in response to blue light. It is an early day light quality. Your biology is designed to turn on when it is exposed to blue light as if the sun were rising and you were getting ready to start your day hunting and gathering. In modern life, most of the blue light we get is after sunset, whether it's our laptops, our tablets, our smartphones, our high-def TVs, fluorescent lighting in our libraries or residential settings. Blue light after sunset is a cue to your brain that the day is just about to begin. So if it's 10, 11 p.m. at night and you're getting ready to retire, to sleep, your body is beginning to produce hormones as if your day was starting. Your cortisol, for example, your stress hormone, which at night should be plummeting, will be on the ceiling. Your melatonin, which is a sleep hormone, but also prevents cancer, heart disease, depression, which should be on the ceiling, will end up on the floor. So there's a total disruption of your circadian biology with an excess of blue light at night and insufficient natural sunlight exposure during the day. So all of that, Ralph, is to say that a simple toolkit would be to try to get as much morning daylight as you can, year-round. And again, you don't want to sunburn, but literally 20, 30 minutes during the day without sunglasses, short sleeves if it's warm enough, is going to ideally set your biology where it needs to be set during daytime activity. At night, it is best to mitigate or block as much of that blue light as you can. One way to do that is with blue blocker glasses. I forgot to bring my pair, but my kids think I look like Bono when I put them on. They are very effective at blocking blue light. They will recreate the light quality that we are adapted to. I also have the filters turned on in my devices to filter out blue light at night. And in rooms that I'm spending more time in, it might be a dorm room, I will put in a warm LED as opposed to a compact fluorescent bulb, which are mostly blue light. A warm LED is mostly orange-yellow light. So that is one way to totally resynchronize your circadian biology. Lastly, in the light category, this time of year in particular, Indianapolis is a pretty northern latitude. A happy light in the morning, these are lights that are quite bright. The magic number is 10,000 lux. 20 minutes of happy light exposure in the morning while you're checking your emails or reading, whatever it is you're doing, will set the stage for your biology in much the same way that a morning sunrise, a summer sunrise, would have on you. So those are all really nice tools that will radically change your sleep quality, your mood, your cognition, and it will leave you more resilient. One last tool, Kit, if I have time.
Yes, you do.
And this falls into the category of nutrition. I work with a colleague, his name is John Bagnulo, he's a nutrition scientist. John developed the nutrition program for Tom Brady's TB12 program in Boston. Tom Brady's been at the vanguard of applying health sciences, lifestyle medicine for many, many years. And his success as a quarterback is more than just drive, and he has created a biology that has allowed him to function in a most extraordinary way under very challenging conditions. So here is the nutritional concept. It's called metabolic flexibility. Each of you has a hybrid engine. Your hybrid engine is designed to burn both carbohydrates and fat. Carbs and fat. Most Americans consume predominantly carbohydrates in their diet. So carbs become their fuel source, particularly carbs that would include sugar and flour. We call them high glycemic. When you consume them, your sugar goes up. These are very inefficient fuels. They can help you short term, but they're very inefficient for long-term metabolic health. So if one cycles, every couple of months, you reel in those carbohydrates, particularly those high glycemic processed carbohydrates, and liberalize healthy fat sources. Fats have been condemned by the medical enterprise. I would suggest to you that natural whole sources of fat are amazing fuel sources. So this would be pasture-raised meats, eggs, butter, whole-fat dairy. Sometimes you don't want to listen to your doctor. Now is not one of those times. High-quality fat, when you introduce more of that and reel in your carbs, will allow you to burn fat more efficiently. And when you can shift your fuel source from carbs to fat, you will limit the likelihood of hitting the wall. You'll have much more endurance. You'll have fewer peaks and troughs in your energy level. And whether you're an elite athlete or whether you're a recreational athlete, this is a major strategy to improve your performance and your general health. A lot of this research is being done at Ohio State. Tom Brady's Institute is doing a lot of this research. So those are two major tools, Ralph. Sorry to get a little long-winded, but I wanted to share that.
Because, one of the outcomes of this event and what we've done yesterday and we'll do again tomorrow with small groups here on campus is to really start to kick the ball down the road. And we aren't providing all the answers tonight. I want to really raise the curiosity. I want to really raise the engagement of how do I engage in conversations as a student on this campus. I use the phrase that we want to accelerate the discussion. And that's what we're doing here tonight. And so over the course of time, to borrow from an old friend, Chris Carr, who I give a shout out to, is a sports psychologist with the Green Bay Packers, has always taught me about, control the controllables, but build the mental toolkit. And that means a lot to me, and we want to export that to our student athletes. And so, sleep, what can I do? Hey, I can get outside. Well, I haven't seen the sun here in Indianapolis since a long time, right? So how do we do that? How do we take care of it? Tell me if this is crazy or not, but I would tell some of our athletes, get in the brightest room in the house, usually the bathroom. Go in there in the morning and turn the lights on when there's no sun here. But yet going outside and just exposing yourself to even though the light might be at a level 2 or 3, you're still getting that exposure. So we're just starting to build this toolkit. And as we go through those things, nutrition, those kinds of things that you talk about, it takes work. And ideas are very easy. We can give you a lot of ideas, but the hard work and the sustainability is in taking action. And that's what we want to encourage everybody to do also within our Butler community, is take action and find things that you can do. So how do I find a smart light that has the right lux on it? $12 on Amazon, right, Doctor? So there are ways to go about those kinds of things, and we'll continue to build those as we have these opportunities to talk in our community. Robert, from your experience with this, and I'm going to shift a little bit as we get back to what I believe are the day-to-day elements that confront us, that confront my fellow athletic trainers, that confront our coaches, our student athletes, our students express themselves in some kind of panic, some kind of anxiety, and it deteriorates their academics, it deteriorates their social interactions, it deteriorates their joy. They don't have joy in what they're doing. And so what are I always think about Robert from this standpoint. Injury occurs. We've got a number of athletes here currently injured who aren't doing what they would like to do, what their social group is doing. They aren't able to do it. And I think anger comes out in that. I think disappointment, frustration, anger. What were some of the emotions that you went through? Was anger one of those?
Yeah, all the above.
Okay.
Right? I think, and it's perfectly healthy to be angry. I think if you're injured and you're on the sidelines watching your peers, your friends compete, your teammates compete, you want to be there, right? And you can't. But I think what's important is to trust the process that's set in place. Although I spoke earlier about how the doctors were telling me to sleep, and I was like, well, no, because this is working. I don't really want to sleep. I want to keep working. Ultimately, I did listen to them on a lot of fronts, just not the hours of rehab. But, I think one thing that always resonated with me that my personal sports psychologist taught me years ago was to manage your expectations, right? In sport, always comes result. So when you enter a game or you enter a race or any competition, there's the end, which is to win, right? So ahead of it, how do you manage the expectations of you can't expect to win. So you see it often in sport where, a top-seeded team will be playing a bottom-seeded team and you expect to win, and then there's an upset, right? And for me, in my world, in my motorsport is, there's, like anyone, there's pressures for results and there's lap times, and so you need to be fast to be the best and all those other things. But as soon as you expect to succeed, you're almost already setting yourself up to fail. So for me, it took a lot of work to just try to eliminate that, because why did I fall in love with my sport? and then just try to resonate with that every day of my adult life when I'm behind the wheel of a race car. And it's just to almost like be in the moment of fulfillment. And for me, it almost eliminated a lot of the pressures of my industry once I could kind of find a system that worked for me like that. And on the topic of rehab, you know, I never expected to walk again, but I was going to give it my best shot and see where we ended up. And I think that was one thing that I learned from my sports recovery that I took into my everyday life that I think probably made my lower extremities significantly stronger than they could have been.
Yeah, so it's a normal process and normal feelings. One of the things I would ask with this is, so when we have these internal thoughts, how do we talk to somebody? How do we find somebody? Because is it all self-talk? Do we have to manage ourselves? How do you find that outlet of whether it's confidentiality, finding the right person? Because our student athletes aren't going to go, in most cases, to their coach and say, I'm vulnerable, I feel horrible, I don't want to do this right now, I'm scared to death. So how do you navigate that?
That's a big question. It's, again, what you said, it's about finding the best fit for you, right? That's paramount. But it's also about looking at multiple resources in your life. We were talking with the SAC last night, and we said at this point in your life, you probably have more resources at your availability than ever in the rest of your life, right? So learn those resources, learn how they work. Butler's done a great job. We met with the student affairs team today, and they were all coming at it from a different angle, different offices, and they were talking about how they can work together and how they collaborate, and that's so great, and that's here for you. So the self-talk matters. That's what you can control. And at the end of the day, no matter where you're at, who you're with, what you're doing, there's only 3 things you can ever control, and that's for all of us. What you think, what you say, what you do. That's it. Okay? How many things in your life are outside of those 3 things that you give your focus, your energy, your attention to, right? The good news is it seems like we don't have a lot of control, right? You mentioned control the controllables, one of the old Ken Ravizza-isms that I grew up with and love. But we have a lot of control because when we can't control the outcome or those things outside of those 3, we can always control our response by what we think, say, and do, right? So if we struggle with those things, we need to find a guide, a coach, a mentor, a counselor, somebody that can help us navigate that journey, somebody that can help us get from where we are to where we want to be and need to be. We all need help. The only way we've gotten here as a species to this point is together. And right now we think that we can go at it alone moving forward, and that's not going to work out for anybody. Okay, we need to work together collaboratively, whether it's caregivers, whether it's students. I've been so impressed this week, Ralph, by the students looking out for each other. And in the last couple of years, my individual client load is 99.9% 18 to 24-year-old student athletes. And that's by design, because I see the struggles that you're going through. It's unique. We're coming out of a pandemic. There's a lot of different extra layers that you're trying to work through, but everybody's working through it. Your professors, your coaches, parents, all of us are just trying to show up every day and figure it out. And we're not going to do that alone. So you mentioned vulnerability. I had a major leaguer come into my office one day and say, how important is vulnerability? And I said, I can't think of too many things that are more important with what you do, right? But we section this off, we categorize it. If I need help with my swing, I'll go talk to the hitting coach. If I need help with my ankle, I'll go talk to the trainer. But if I'm struggling inside, I start to worry and get concerned about stigma and perception, and I look weak. And I had a major leaguer tell me I slid hard into second base. Everybody saw me limp off. Nobody questions whether or not I go to the trainer. But if I come see you, and I'm not a clinician, by the way, if I come see you, they're going to think I'm weak. And couldn't be further from the truth. It's just like any other coach, any other teacher, any other guide. You're going to use a resource that you have to make yourself better. And that's the key to all of this. Take advantage of what you have. Ask for help. I've never seen students at this age group ever in my 5 years of doing this, because I'm only 25, right? In the many years I've done this, I've never seen students have an awareness not only of their own needs, They have Dr. Google that they can, any question they have, they look it up, which is good and bad. But I've never seen them have each other's backs the way they do right now either. I have my clients reach out and say, hey, I talked to my buddy who's at this college across the country about this mental health topic, and we had a 2-hour conversation last night. What do you think about this? So they're bringing me issues, they're bringing me possible solutions, and they're asking me my opinion on it. If I'm not listening, that doesn't work. So it really does take all of us in our roles working together. I told the students last night, I'm going to take these messages to your coaches, but you do too. You need to take these to them. And then when I got to the coaches, I said, hey, I told the students I'd bring this, but you need to be there to listen. Talk to each other. Be vulnerable. It's okay. If you can't do it on your team that supports you and loves you and fights beside you every day, where can you do it? Right? Just keep loving each other. Keep supporting each other. That's the key to all of this.
Well, thank you for that. And it's here in this city and state of Indiana, we're fortunate to have the Indianapolis Colts and their mantra of "kick the stigma," and I think about that a lot. There's an extraordinary amount of change that's occurring in higher education, and particularly in athletics. And those of us who've been around for a while see all of that change. And it's one of the changes that we want to see more of is opening up and seeking support. I know that you talked, Dr. Campbell, you talked about the spectrum of mental health. Talk about that a little bit and how we're sort of dealing. And this talks about some of the resources that we have available here at Butler through our counseling center.
Well, one of my biggest frustrations, my first degree is in English, right? So at the time I thought it would allow me to be a waiter with a big vocabulary, right? But the biggest thing I took from that was words have meaning, and the way we use words matter. And when we say mental health today, unfortunately we lump everything under mental health. Right? Just like with our healthcare system, and Mark and I talk about this all the time, what we're really dealing with right now is a sick care system. People don't see a professional until something's wrong. That's not the answer. You see athletes come in the training room after something happens. Nobody wants to do prehab, right? But on this mental wellness continuum, a lot of our focus for programs, funding, resources, when we say mental health, it's the far right end, the diagnosable intervention-based disorder. Right? And when that happens, those professionals are the most important person in your life. But that leaves everybody else who's trying to figure out how not to go down this way without those programs, funding, resources. Right? So that's why something like Preventia, and I'm an unpaid advisor to Preventia, I'm not getting paid a dime to say any of this, with health and wellness coaches, with everybody working together, all the resources on Butler's campus, helping us to navigate that journey, we're going to slide along that spectrum. That's life. Right? I tell athletes every day, well, not just athletes, anybody I work with, feel what you need to feel when you need to feel it. You're not a robot. The key is just not to get stuck there. And I'm going to help you learn techniques to manage that. But if you struggle, text me, call me, email me in that moment. I'll help you do it. Talk to your coach, talk to your teammates, talk to your parents, talk to somebody. Where we get in trouble in the mental health space and where we plummet down to this side and bad things really happen is when we feel like we're alone a lot of times. We don't know how to talk to professionals, right? We don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to be the problem child. I hear that every day, okay? People can't help situations they're unaware of. We have to get more comfortable talking to each other, working together, and collaborating.
Yeah, and on that point, I think that not only are we asking ourselves to talk, but we need also to be able to listen and understand or learn how to respond. And so there's at least two people in this equation, right?
Always.
And so there's an awful lot of learning that we need to gain, and there's education that we need to pay attention to. As I reflect back on, we did our counseling center with Keith Magnus put together a program for our coaches last fall about how to manage a crisis to a certain degree. And a major question of our coaches was, what do I say, right? Very valid. As a parent, what do I say? As a neighbor, what do I say? As somebody who walks past you in the hallway of the class, of the dorm or the school building, what do I say when somebody says, I'm not doing very good? And so we have a lot of teaching and a lot of learning to do. You agree, Dr. Pettis?
I totally agree. And sometimes we don't have to say anything. We simply need to be present and to feel and hear and understand what someone else is experiencing. And as everyone here has said, ours is a journey meant to be shared. And it's very easy to feel like you're alone, that there's no one else out there. At the end of the day, and I hope this doesn't sound presumptuous to any of you, you are who you are, and that is enough. That will always be enough. We all need help along the way. That's how we got here. Sometimes, in retrospect, we look back on our lives and those crises become the best teachers. Just sitting here next to Robert, listening to his story, to feel how he has interpreted and responded to a profound set of circumstances in a way that has allowed you to shine the light that you shine, just exemplifies the power of the human spirit. That is really the true nature of who you are, despite what you might think on some days. And so I do think, Ralph, that it's so important that we be present for each other, even if we don't know what to say or how to respond.
So I'm going to call that your closing comment.
Yes.
Mark Campbell, any closing thoughts?
One easy toolkit piece that's a big focus of mine right now is using nature to heal, using nature to increase health and well-being. We talked on that a little bit about the light stuff, but there's so much evidence-based research out there that people aren't aware of to the healing impact of just being outside. 20 minutes outside can completely change the biochemistry of your brain, your body. It's been shown that 20 minutes outside can manage the symptoms of anxiety and depression maybe as well or better than most of the pharmaceuticals on the market. Okay, I get myself in trouble by saying this, but now that I've said that, I'll let you make your own opinions about why we don't know about the research. But it's staggering how much it's undeniably good for us. And not being outside with a goal or an intention, but just being outside just to be there. It teaches us mindfulness. It's a classroom for handling adversity. It's a classroom for transition. Nature was the first teacher, the first preacher, the first grocery store, the first counselor. It was everything. And as Mark said, right now, as an outdoor species that has spent 99% of our existence outside somehow, connected to nature, we do nothing but build walls around ourselves and avoid going outside. The latest numbers are 94% of our time indoors, in front of blue light, which he already told you how bad that is, right? Just walk outside. There's so many natural things that help us heal and be better every single day. And guess what? Nature's free. I'll just leave it at that.
Yep, thank you. Robert, any comments to close up for our group?
I think the big thing for everyone here is ultimately you guys have to do what's best for yourselves, right? My journey might not work for you guys, maybe it will, but I think just being open to experimenting, to see kind of what works for you is important. We all see TV, we all see all the superstar athletes, we all see their pre-game routines, but really you don't see their dark days. You just see the best versions of themselves, whether if it's on a court, on a field, on a racetrack. You don't really see what they're truly like behind closed doors. And I think that's one thing for everyone to note. And it's even for me in my recovery, I wish I was stronger in my earlier years to just show the days where I was just crying, because it happened a lot. It wasn't like I was just this super positive person going to rehab every day. I'd be doing reps but crying while I was doing them because of how hard it was. And not only that, like knowing how much further I had to climb to, right, I was just getting one muscle firing and I realized that I needed another 30 muscles to even move my leg, and then from there try to stand and take it one step at a time. And frankly, I wasn't strong enough. I didn't want to share that. I didn't want to be vulnerable at that time of my life. And I think that's one thing for all of you guys to know is, you know, it's okay to be vulnerable, as we all talked on. But really, whatever gets the best out of yourselves, it's different for each and every one of you. So just make sure you keep that at heart, and then really just remember why you're competing in the sport that you're competing in. You know, I think it's all because we love it as kids. And frankly, just doing what you love is, I think, what's most important in life.
Butler students, we've got a QR code that you can dial into right now. Dial into. Yeah, dial your phones, right? And that takes you right to the Preventia website for Butler, and you can hook into the services that are available to you. Coming events, we had a slide up here with Tamika Catchings for our women's sports teams. We're going to have a special night for all of you on 2 days before Valentine's Day, right? But on Monday, February 12th, we'll have a special night. Tamika will be there to kick things off, and then a lot of folks from our Butler campus and other providers from elsewhere who have a connection to Butler will be there to support you. Butler students, get your code, your QR code for your credit for tonight. And you know what I want to emphasize as we bring this together is this is the beginning, and this is a launch for ongoing programming. We need your input. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to learn? And we'll put that together for you. And so this is the launch of something that's going to be long after I'm gone from this campus and you're gone from this campus. We're starting something that'll be a legacy for Butler forever. And it's starting here tonight and these couple days. You're a part of it. Engage in it. That's the hard work. Engaging in it is the hard work. Let's have a round of applause for our panel tonight. Thank you so much for being here.